Okay, we're on Kuf Aleph and Aleph.
My radio alarm must have been on for 10 minutes before I woke up.
Yeah. You woke up, I actually woke up early, but I got distracted. 101A, we're in the question of Yesh Shvach Simanim al Hatzemer. What does that mean? Yesh Shvach Simanim al Hatzemer. Do we consider the color of a garment to have significance? What difference does that make? What does it mean is color something significant? So we'll try to explain how would that make a practical difference. So we're at 1 second. We're in 101A and we're at about 2 dots, about quarter of the way down. Let's start from the beginning. Hey Chidami, what's the scenario? It's much easier to understand the question when we get to the specific scenario. Now, the Gemara obviously goes through a few cycles of scenarios until we get an ideal scenario that we can sort of address the question. Okay, hey Chidan, what scenario? The first scenario is he stole dyes, he ground them down. They were ground into a powder. Then he put them into a pot, boils up the pot, and he dips his wool into it. Well, by grinding it, he has acquired it with the shinoi. So it's not a question. Okay, so let's hear the Gazal Samanim Shruyin b'tzavah. He stole a pot filled with dye, and then he dipped his clothes into the pot. Does he have to give his clothes back to the guy who he stole from? Do we consider that change to be significant? What's the story? That he could say, I like your clothing because my dye is on your clothes. Or the fact that the clothes are colored, they're a nice blue, is not significant. And you can't collect the guy's clothes. 1 second.
Robert can't connect.
The one who had his stuff stolen cannot collect the robber's clothes. Or do you say it's not significant? The robber says, even though his clothes are now a nice blue, he says, well, it's not your clothes, it's my shirt. I turned a white shirt into a blue shirt. Amri, the Gemara says 1 second. He ain't shvach simal gabe etzemer mi motzi amrle les lecha gaboy v'lamidi, namely havli samanoid upset the tinu. Okay, now even if you'll say that ain't shvach simal gabe etzemer, okay, meaning that there is no significance to the fact that the clothes are a different color, but the robber still owes him a certain amount of ounces worth of dye. It took some
powder.
It took some of the liquids, and the pot, he's giving back a pot with less liquid dye in it than when he stole it. So this scenario doesn't work. Okay, so let's change it again. El lahachisa. 1 second. Okay, so where's El lahachisa? So perhaps this is the question. Okay, so what happens here? The guy took his undershirt and made it blue, right? Let's say he took an expensive dye and he made it purple. His purple undershirt. So do we say as follows? Do we say we don't view the color of his undershirt as significant. Therefore, he stole a certain amount of dye, a certain amount of ounces of dye that went to dye the undershirt are now missing from the pot. He has to pay cash. Or do we say or do we say, look, perhaps he can give the guy the undershirt, and he says, look, you want your dye back? Here it is. Take the undershirt. I need the undershirt back, but you're welcome to take the dye out of it. How is exactly he supposed to take the dye out of the undershirt? The my shakle, how is he taking it out? he's going to take it out with soap. Whereas it's soften if we're miaver. A shovel of it. Soap is going to get rid of the color completely. Right? So usually if you use the weak color and you dye it with soap, I'm sorry, you wash it with soap. But then, right, if you buy clothes that weren't dyed well, right? What happens when you put it into the washing machine? They come out clean, right?
Yeah, the ink is on everything else in
Exactly.
the laundry.
Exactly. But you don't get the dye back at the end, right? It's not like the coin change at the bottom of the soda machine. You don't get change back. You don't get the dye back. So you can't. How can you return the undershirt and demand the shirt back, but the other guy can take the dye?
I guess it just comes down to two things, Rabbi. One, the dye comes, and two, dyeing is easy.
This is too easy. None of these shirts
It really
count.
is.
It's just straight setup. Okay, so now we have the what is now? This is the third scenario. Okay, what happened? He goes semer of a simonim dechad. Okay, he stole from Ruvain. Shimon stole Ruvain's wool, and he stole Ruvain's pot that was filled with dye. And he took Ruvain's wool and he dyed it in Ruvain's dye. And now he wants to give back everything. He wants to give back the dyed wool and the pot. The Gemara says, "Yes, shvach siman magabe tzemer v'kamahadu leisiman." Do we say that the color on the shirt is significant? So in this case, he's returning both the complete amount of dye, plus he's returning the wool that he stole, the shirt, let's say. Or do we say ein shvach siman magabe tzemer? The color on the shirt is not significant. He's giving him back wool, but he's not giving him back the dye. He owes him. He has to pay him for the dye that he stole, because some of that dye is not being returned, even though obviously the shirt is dyed now. But that doesn't count as returning the dye. Is another problem. If you've noticed the past couple of days, we kept on talking about a scenario when you dye something, right? So we said that, let's say raw wool is $1 a pound. The cost of dyeing wool is $3 a pound, and the cost of dyed wool is $5 a pound. So in this case, he's actually giving him back more than he stole, right? Because he stole dye plus a shirt, and he's giving him back a little bit less dye, but he's giving him a dyed shirt, which is worth more than the dye and the shirt. Another? So Gemara says, okay, you're right. The value of dyed products decreased in value. So actually, the owner prefers the pot of dye and the undyed shirt, the plain color shirt, than having a dyed shirt and less dye, because now the price of dyed shirts is worth less. Okay, Vibay Sema, another possibility moves on to the fourth scenario. He dyed something that's meaningless. So he took a wicker basket or something and he dyed it. There's two interpretations. I'm going here with one interpretation of Rashi. Kupa is you might see Kupa as a monkey. Yeah. We'll get to the monkey in a moment. But for the time being, I think the easier to understand is the one with the wicker basket. So basically, he dyed something that there's no significance to dyeing. Nobody cares if your wicker basket is dyed. So
Doesn't make it look really ugly.
So even worse. So now basically he can't. The question is, can he return the dye by returning a dyed wicker basket? And again, presumably a wicker basket is not something that's supposed to be dyed. Okay. And we leave this as an open question. We'll try to resolve it shortly. Ravina offers another proposal, fifth proposal. The truth of the matter is that the wool belonged to one person. It belonged to, I don't know, Levi, and the dyes belonged to Reuven. And Shimon stole from both people, separate people. The Ka'asi Kaif Vitsavi Lahut Bahana Samarim. And a monkey came along, and he dyed the wool of Levi with the dye of Reuven. Now here's the question. Yesh shvach samano gabe tzemer the amrle havi samano the gaboch neno. Do we say yesh shvach samano gabe tzemer? So therefore, Reuben can demand that Shimon return the dyes that are on Levi's clothes. Idilma ein shvach samano gabe tzemer v'amrle leschal gaboy klum. 1 second. One second. Okay. Sorry. It appears in this scenario, in Ravina's scenario, there's no robbery. The guy had wool and he had dye, and they belonged to two different people. And then the monkey came and started using the dye to dye something else. That was a big thing today. They had like elephants that can draw pictures. And so there's a group in I don't know if it's either in Africa or in India that they taught elephants how to draw pictures. They can grab the paintbrush with their trunk and paint. So I guess if elephants could paint, monkeys could dye. Why not? So the monkey. So what happened was he had permission. He had both of these items in his rishos, in his property, and the monkey came along and started dyeing, using one guy's pot to dye the other guy's clothes. So now he has to return it. Can he how exactly does he return it? Can the guy say, well, you still have some dye by me because look, it's on the guy's shirt. My dye is on his shirt. Or do we say that that's insignificant? He can argue that he doesn't have anything by him. Toshma. Okay, now, and again, it's important to realize over here, nobody's guilty for anything. It's not like he's even a damager. You see what I'm saying? In other words, he didn't damage anything. Maybe the stuff was secured correctly, and there was they lived in monkey country. Where are monkeys? Africa, right? Madagascar. Madagascar's a lot of monkeys. So the monkeys sort of did it on their own. So now the only question here is it's not a damage question. It's not a stealing question. Nobody stole. Nobody did any damages. The monkeys did the damage. The only question is, okay, at the end of the day, whose dye is it? The dye belongs to Reuven. And Reuven's dye is on Levi's clothing. Or no, we don't look at clothing having dye. In other words, we see Levi we don't see Reuven's dye on Levi's clothing. We see Levi has colored clothing. Happens to be it happened through a monkey. But we don't give any significance to that as if Reuven has any claim on Levi's clothes. Okay, so now that we've established the question of like 3 scenarios that work, let's try to answer the question. Toshma, begech etzava b'klipe arla. Okay, so familiar with the laws of arla. Arla is the first 3 years of a tree. Okay, now let's just say that in Israel this is quite significant today in modern contemporary times. Outside of Israel, it's not as relevant, and the reason for that is complicated. But basically, any tree that you're not sure about how old it is, you can presume it's over 3 years old. Presumption would be reasonable. So I once went into a factory, and they told me that they have this new ingredient. They can't figure out why it's not kosher. So I said, what's the ingredient? He says papain. Papain apparently is a processed form of papaya.
Oh.
So why is it not kosher? So apparently, papain has to be extracted from papaya trees that are less than 3 years old.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, the overwhelming majority, it is the case that the overwhelming majority of papain comes from these trees. In effect, it's arla. And therefore, you cannot get, it's very difficult to get a hold of kosher papain. Papain is treated as non-kosher. But that's the rare exception where it must be harvested from young trees. If it was harvested equally, that it would be permitted to eat. Even if it was unequal, it might be permitted to eat. There's a whole shmaitz on this. It's Sefer Kol Shef Shmaitz. It goes into discussion on this at length. Very interesting discussion. But regardless, in Israel, you would have neither of those. In Israel, if it's likely it comes from a tree under 3 years old, you would have to, you would not be able to eat it. the rules in Israel are much more stringent than outside of Israel. Outside of Israel, you can be much more lenient, and this is how the tradition is. Okay. Now, very important, Arla is only relevant to fruits. It is not relevant to branches. You want to cut down the tree and burn it, that's fine. We have Beged Shetzavi B'Klipi Arla. Apparently, the shells of a walnut are used for dye. I don't know if this is part of the galnuts or something else, but
It takes a lot of gal.
but I don't think it is. I think galnuts come from oak trees, but whatever it is, they can be used as dye. So if you dyed it with the fruits of Arla, now obviously walnut, the shell of the nut is part of the fruits. It's prohibited to eat. If you dye your clothes with the shells of these nuts, then yidlak, you have to burn it. Alma, we see from here, chazusa milsa. A color is significant. That's why you have to burn it. If color is insignificant, then it's not considered that you used Arla. Your shirt is dyed blue. It has nothing to do with the fact that you had cherry juice in it. It's irrelevant. The fact that we consider your blue or red shirt to be dyed with the cherry juice of Arla indicates to us that chazusa is milsa, that color is significant. So Gemara says you're right. I'm just going a little bit ahead here. The Gemara's resolution is you're right, but Arla is different. Just because color is significant with regard to the laws of Arla doesn't mean it's significant elsewhere. So Amarava Hanoah Niralaynayim Asr Torah. Any pleasure is prohibited with the laws of Arla. The Tanya we learned, Arelim, the fruits are Arelim, they're Arla. Lo yochel, I can't eat them. Elias ela esrachila. I know that I can't eat cherries that are from Arla. Minayin shlo yehena mimenu. How do I know that I can't derive any benefit? V'lo yitzma bay, I can't use it as a dye. V'lo yadlik bay as an air, I can't use it to light a fire. Talmud loymar araltim arlosay es purya. Arelim lo yochel. The Rabbi says kulam. The Torah speaks of Arla as prohibited at multiple levels. What does that mean? The Rabbi says kulam, any type of pleasure is prohibited from the fruits of Arla. This includes the pleasure of dyeing your clothes with it. And that's why your clothes are prohibited, but it's a unique law to the laws of Arla.
Position, please.
2 lines in the bottom of the page. 101a. Toshma, let's examine this. You have a garment that was dyed with the fruits of Shemitah. Okay. We'll have to we're going to go into the laws of Shemitah a little bit, see what's permitted, what's prohibited. Yidlak, you have to burn it. The Gemara says, if you know I'm muting. The Gemara says, Shiny Hassam to Amakra Tia Bahavyasai Tehei. Okay, now if you have to burn clothes that were dyed with the fruits of Shemitah, what does that tell me? Chazusa milsa, color is significant. And then even after you dyed it, we look at the dye as still being extant, it's still existing. And where is that dye from Shemitah? Shemitah, you gotta get rid of it. Right? You have to get rid of it. Therefore, we see that color is significant. So the Gemara says Shemitah is also in its own category. Why? Shani Hasan Amakra Tia Bahavyasei Tehei. The Torah tells you that Shemitah, wherever it is, it's Shemitah. So, for example, let's say a guy has a field, cherry trees. I like cherries. Cherry trees, okay? He's got cherry trees of Shemitah. So he takes his cherries and against the law of Shemitah, he sells the cherries, which is prohibited. And now he has money. Right? The law is that cherries have the same rules of Shemitah. The cherries still have to be treated with the law of Shemitah, even though they were sold. But not only the cherries have to be treated with the law of Shemitah, the money has to be treated with Shemitah.
Oh, sure.
See, so if I take the money now and I buy cucumbers, I have to treat the cucumbers with the law of Shemitah as well. Now, even though you might think to yourself, well, the cucumber is very far from the cherries. There's been money in between, right? Doesn't make a difference. That the law of Shemitah is Bahavyasei Tehei. Everything where it goes, it always keeps its law of Shemitah. And therefore, if you put it you dye it into a clothing, so the clothing now has the laws of Shemitah. Yes.
It's like Talmudic FBI. You gotta follow the trail. You can't let them profit by laundering the ungotten goods.
Yeah. So Shemitah is like this, and this Shemitah goes like this forever. The Gemara says that took the money, he bought meat. Took the money, he switched it for oil. Then he switched the oil for something else, for wine. He switched the wine for other fruits. The last one has the first one and the last one have shemitah. So the cherries, those I picked from the tree, those are actually shemitah stuff. They have laws of shemitah, and the last item to be exchanged also has the laws of shemitah.
Are you saying that once the cherries are exchanged for something else, the shemitah ban no longer applies to the cherries?
No, that's what I'm saying. It applies to both. The first item.
You described a string of items.
So the first item of the string, which is cherries,
Okay.
they always have kedusha shvius.
All right.
And the last item on the chain.
Okay, but the second thing.
So the money
cherries get exchanged for
exactly
loses,
exactly.
Once it gets exchanged,
Exactly.
it loses the
Exactly.
All right.
So in this case, the guy switched from money to meat to oil to wine to fruit. So the money did have kedusha shvius, but then it lost it when you bought the meat. The meat had it, but then it lost it when you switched it for
Right.
oil. The oil had it, but you lost it when you switched it to wine.
So something in the middle.
So everything in the middle loses shemitah once you exchange it again. So it's the first and the last thing.
Then you could do something with something in the middle.
True.
Okay.
True. So
Yeah.
you're able
We
to.
don't want the flunky, we want the kingpin behind it all.
It's the first and
Yeah.
the last item. Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So now we still don't have a proof.
Yeah.
Rava asked us as a question. We're in third word on 101b. Tanan we learned. Yidlak. You have a garment that was dyed with the shells of arla. You burn it. We see here that color is significant. V'raminu, I'll ask you a question. Okay. You have the law is that a person who's a deceased corpse creates tumah. Very strong type of tumah. We call that tumah avi avayis tumah, father of all tumah. It's not just a corpse. It's even if you have, let's say you have a size of nias, an olive size of flesh from the corpse that also has the same level of tumah, or a revius of dam, 3 ounces of blood. Well, some say it's not quite all blood. This really has to be blood that killed him. So it would be the blood. It would be the blood the blood as he died, whereas blood after he died does not have the same level of tumah. Okay. Okay, so so what happened was you took 3 ounces of blood and you poured it on the floor of the house. So now is the house tummy or not? Now it's absorbed in the floor. Habayis tummy, the house is tummy. The Amrila and some say Habayis tahar, the house is tahar. Below plea, there's no debate. Habakel the havamikar, habakel the osel b'seif. If you have vessels there initially, so then as soon as you pour the blood on the floor, those vessels become tummy. Anything that's in the house becomes tummy. But once it's absorbed in the ground and then you bring new vessels inside the house, then they do not become tummy. Okay.
I don't understand the logic. I accept the conclusion. I don't understand how they got there.
It just gets absorbed, I guess.
So the first second, you do have tumah. Once it's absorbed, you don't have tumah.
Yeah.
1 second. In other words, before it's absorbed, there's tumah. Once it's absorbed, there's no tumah anymore because it's absorbed.
Rabbi, I don't know if this is meant to connect with the subject under discussion, but it's just, let's say you mentioned that there's a dye that's made from a certain, I guess, gall nut, let's say, and we're talking, let's say it's orla, and let's say some guy harvested it and made it into a dye, which is then used to paint a new car. You know, that paint's not coming off. What happens to the car?
As the Gemara said, well, what do you do with the clothing? You burnt it.
Burn the car?
Burn the car.
I'd like to see that.
Okay, you can go to any mostly peaceful protest.
That exactly. That solution will get a lot of takers here in Portland.
Okay, so Gemara says, "Well, how became the car? How became also the site?" Okay, the basic idea is as follows: when you have a puddle of 3 ounces of blood on the floor, the house becomes tummy. Once it's absorbed, there's no more tummy anymore. Anything that was in the house already when there was a puddle on the floor, that's tummy. But if you bring new things into the house, once it's absorbed, there's no tummy. Okay, but here's the big one. Nivla'a b'ksos. It was absorbed in a garment. So he had his blood-drenched cloak, right? Ryan, you have to examine it. Okay, so you have a blood-soaked shirt. Here's the question. Sorry for the gruesome nature of this, but if you can squeeze out 3 ounces of blood, then or alternatively, if you wash it and you put it in water and you can detect that there are 3 ounces of more, you put it like in a graduated stone, you can detect that there's 3 ounces of blood in here, meaning the blood is still wet. It still hasn't dried. So you detect that there's more, this is displacing more than just the weight of the shirt, it's also displacing 3 ounces of blood that's absorbed in it because it hasn't dried. So then it's tummy. Vimlav tahara. However, once it's absorbed, it's tar. Then the shirt no longer gives off this tumah.
Run around with the bloody shirt.
Oh, 1 second. So you have a shirt here that's terribly bloodstained. Clearly, 3 ounces of blood were poured in it. And yet, because the blood is mostly dry, there's no tumah anymore. 1 second. But if chazusa milsa, if color is significant, I could tell from this shirt that there's 3 ounces of blood on it. That color of the shirt. So the shirt should still give off tumah. You have the question?
Yeah.
The answer is Mikule Amr of Kahana, Mikule Ravias Shano Khan, Bidam Tfusa Darabalim. The Gemara says you're right. This is a different type of blood. The blood here we're referring to is Dam Tfusa. Dam Tfusa is the blood of an already dead person. The tumah that we talk about, the tumah deraisa of blood, is the blood that actually killed him, the blood that left him as he died. And this is a rabbinical level of tumah, and because of that, the rabbis were lenient when the blood was dry. So there's no proof. Rava Rami. Rava had the following question. Now we learned. Okay, dyes have the laws of Shemitah. He has these. What's the other one?
Safflower and wood.
Safflower and wood. Thank you. Safflower and wood. These items have the laws of Shvius. Yesh lan beer, old man beer. Okay. Meaning they have the laws of Shemitah. You have to treat them with the laws of Shemitah. And if you sell them, the money also has the laws of Shemitah. Shemitah has something called beer. Familiar with the law of beer? Beer basically means that, so you're allowed to eat, let's go with grapes, easy example. Right? So the grapes are harvested in late August, and you want to make wine, you want to make grape juice. So you go to the field and you harvest out 100 pounds of grapes. Right? Because that's 8, 10 gallons, 12 gallons of grape juice. Or maybe you make it into wine, which is fine. It's perfectly permitted. You have the wine for Kiddush, you're allowed to do that. You can drink the wine for daily beverage, also fine. But now it comes late December, maybe even January, maybe it's February or May, and there are no more grapes left on the trees, such that an animal, patrolling the vineyard will be hungry. There'll be nothing for it to eat. So then you have to take all the grapes you have in your house and you have to put it out on the outside. And anyone who wants to take it. Your grapes are now wine. The wine is free for the taking. Okay. You're allowed to keep in your house two meals for each person. So if you have 10 people in your household, you can keep, let's say 20 bottles of grape juice. Right? If you have 5, you can keep 10 bottles of grape juice, but no more. Everything else has got to be sent out. That's called beer. So you have these woad stuff. You have woad. You can keep it in your house, but up until the time of beer, at that point you have to put the woad back out into the fields. Okay. Now, presumably, if dyes have the laws of Shemitah, then wood is in the same category. That if you take trimmings from a tree, that wood has the sanctity of Shemitah. You have these wooden branches or branches of a vine. You gather them together and you put them away for the winter to heat your house. So let's say these were the softer branches, the ones that are potentially edible. Again, I'm not so familiar here with how you eat these types of branches, but if you had intention to eat them, so then then there's a sanctity of Shemitah. However, if you gather them la'etzim for wood, there's no sanctity of Shemitah. So clearly here, wood does not have the sanctity of Shemitah. So what is it? If wood doesn't have a sanctity of Shemitah, well, you might think that dyes don't either have a sanctity of Shemitah. So what's going on? In other words, let's reframe the question. What defines the laws of Shemitah? What type of agricultural products are included under the rubric of Shemitah? We have a contradiction. Well, what's the answer? It's very simple. The answer is Hana'asan Biur and Shavan. What does Biur mean? The consumption. The consumption and the benefit happen at the same time. So, for example, how do you consume dye? You dip your clothes in it. And guess what you get at the same time you consume it? You get dyed clothes. Right? How do you consume fruit? You eat it. Right? And you benefit, your stomach is full, you have energy at the moment that you eat it. Now, benefit from it. So you cook with it, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you benefit from the wood after you've used the wood? So first you burn the wood, then you cook the food, and then only afterwards you get to eat the food and benefit from it afterwards. So the key idea in Shemitah is you need to benefit at the same time as consumption. To eat it. How do you define l'achla? Very wide category. I don't know if we'll get to it today or we'll get to it tomorrow, but we'll talk about this at greater length. The mishana also you're a shava, you have to derive the benefit at the same time you consume it. Yatsu eitzim, wood is different because you benefit from it after you've already consumed it. You've consumed it by burning it in the fire to cook your food. Then only afterwards do you get to eat the food, cooked food, which is not at the same time that you consume the wood. Okay, so Gemara says, "Eitz in the mashchan." Eitz in the mashchan. I don't exactly know which category of tree this is, but these are woods that are very high in oil. And what happens is these are used as like torches. So they're used for illumination. When do you benefit from the illumination? At the same time that you consume it, right? You burn it, you get the illumination. This is the equivalent of a flashlight, or as they say in South Africa, a torch. Quite literally, it is a torch. So Amarova stam eitzim la'asaka inamdim. So whereas you're right, eitz in the mashchan, these types of wood torches. The truth of the matter is that it could be these wood torches. They would have the law of Shemitah, but generally speaking, that's not what wood is used for. Wood is used for burning, for cooking. So it's for cooking, and therefore regular wood, unless you specifically picked it for illumination, regular wood is going to be cooked, is going for cooking, and does not have the sanctity of Shemitah. Omer of Kahana says, "Ve'etzim la'asaka tanoi." Wood for burning is subject to a debate. Meaning, this debate. There's a debate here. There's a debate among the Tanaim whether or not this type of torch wood has the sanctity of Shemitah. The Tanya we learned. How do they translate mishra? Mishra is for soaking. This is
soaking pool or wandering pool.
Yeah. 1 second. Got it. Yeah. Okay. You can't use Shemitah. You can't use it to soak flax to make it easier to spin, or to soak it to wash your clothes. You can't use Shemitah fruits as detergent, basically, or what do they call this? Fabric softener, something like that. Rabbi Yossi says, "Nice and parashvitz you're allowed to." Okay, my time of the Rabbanan. What's the reasoning of the rabbis? You have to eat it. You can't use it for softening clothes or for washing clothes. You could use it for whatever you want to use it. Use it for anything. So the rabbis, what do the rabbis do? The rabbis do with the fact that it says you can use it for whatever you want. So Gemara says, you're right, you can use it for whatever you want. You can use it as long as the benefit comes at the moment you consume it. Obviously, as you probably figured out, the benefit of laundered clothing happens when you wear it, not when you soak it in laundered clothing and consume the fruits of Shemitah. So therefore, that's excluded. And the benefit you derive is after you consumed it. Rabbi Yosi nami aksiv la'achla. Rabbi Yosi also says you have to eat it. Amalacha humi b'ayla like the Tanya. La'achla, to eat it limits the following. The Tanya we learned la'achla v'lo l'malugma. Malugma is sort of a it's a medicinal drink. You can't make medicine. You can't use this in your pharmacy concoctions. Pharmacies can't use shmita. Well, maybe actually la'achla means that you can't use it to wash your clothing. Which one is it? Does medicine or does it exclude washing clothing? It says lachem, you can use it for anything. It means you can wash your clothing with it. You have to eat it. You can't use it as a medicine. Gemara says, so why are you saying that you could use it for washing your clothing and you can't use it for medicine? Maybe they say the opposite. Maybe you could use it for the medicine, you can't use it for washing your clothing. Why do you prefer one over the other? It's very simple. Everyone needs to wash their clothes. But not everyone needs a medicine tincture. Okay. So now, 1 second. Okay. Right. So what Rashi proposes here that according to Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Yosi allows fruits to be used for washing clothes. Yosi presumably would hold that if you picked these atzik eitz in the Mishkan, these torch woods, then it would have kedusha shvius. And whereas the rabbis would say, no, if it's picked as wood, we go with the majority. Wood is used majority for burning, for cooking. Therefore, it's not included. Let's briefly finish the Gemara. We have the following brayso. Who authored it? Who authored the following brayso? To eat and not for medicine. It was a Talmudic custom. They used to pour water on the floor. It would make the house, pour wine on the floor. It would make the house smell very good. Wine on the floor. So you can't use your shemitah wine and pour it on the floor. Apaktvizin is sort of a medicine that makes you throw up. It's sort of so you can't use that. You can't use shemitah stuff for that either.
Yes.
So the Gemara says, "Come on, who is this like?" Rabbi Yosi. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yosi. According to Rabbi Yosi, all these things are unique for people that are ill. The rabbis would include also washing clothing. So clearly, the fact that it's limited just to people that are ill, this indicates to us that this is the opinion of Rabbi Yosi. Okay, interesting Gemara for tomorrow.
That's good.